Hello and welcome to a new episode of Concierge.os. My name is Gabriel, and during this presentation I would like to ask you to not bother about the code. The code is in this branch, and specifically this commit. The branch will not be deleted. None of the branches will be deleted even after being merged to master. The code is open source, so you have the freedom to pull it and run it. Currently the project runs very well, so you would win the most if you just pay attention to the presentation and how the encountered problems have been fixed. What has changed from last time is the whole architecture. So now the browser sends an HTTPS request to Caddy. Caddy allows the request to go to Keycloak if it doesn't have a JWT. If it has a JWT, it goes all the way to off to proxy, which based on the permissions that it finds in the header, it forwards back to Caddy in order to allow the redirection to the specific page. So now it is much more straightforward and we have a lot more control. There is a new file, the routes.yaml, which is the source of truth between Caddy and off to proxy, and have some extra debug scripts that we can use in order to analyze what is happening. The goal for this episode, it is to have 9 granular roles, one for each page. The role will be specific per endpoint. There will be a mapping file between roles and pages, and there will be a synchronization script. We still aim to have 0 code changes in the backend and the front-end project, and we will play with cookie refresh in order to obtain session invalidation. Session invalidation in Keycloak, it is 2 things. Either your session has expired, in which case off to proxy will refresh the session for you as long as you still exist in the platform, and there is an option to log out users using the user interface of Keycloak, and in that case you have to be logged out. This can be obtained with cookie refresh. You can think about cookie refresh as a cron job that runs at a specific moment and synchronizes the cookies that exist in auth to proxy with what exists in Keycloak. A snippet of the routes configuration looks like this. So for the role of settings view, you have access to a setting page and any other sub page, and you have access to the settings API and any other URI deeper than this. Same for reservations, same for performance. The special part is this here, view. We can have anything we want, honestly. The convention is that we use the name of the page in frontend, so the path in the frontend project, and then we have the access right after the column. If we want even more granularity, since Caddy do not distinguish between the verb, so between get, post, so on and so forth, so we can add one more semicolon and then post, get, whatever. But then we have to manage this in the code. Here is an example of how that would look like. Having this is sufficient for the state of the project. Then there is a new service called role sync, which in the beginning was created just to bring new roles. So if we create a new role here in Keycloak, this role sync will bring it and push it to Caddy. We have enabled the Caddy debug port, which is an API endpoint that can accept changes to the configuration, and it has a hot swap. So as soon as new changes are being pushed, Caddy regenerates the permissions. We have opted in for this because we also want to pull admin events. Admin events in Keycloak are events related to users. There is a different way of achieving what role sync does here, which is more correct than this. It would be to write a Keycloak plugin, which on change it pushes things to Caddy automatically, but we have opted in to have it as a separate service in order to have more freedom on when it comes to playing with what it is inside and debugging how it works. We had to add the cookie expire. This is after how long the user is being logged out, and the cookie refresh, which calls user info. This is an endpoint in Keycloak every minute because we have set it to 1 minute, and refreshes the sessions of the users. Then in the first version of role sync, we were actually rewriting all the configuration of Caddy because we were creating a JSON object which was not correctly scoped, and when we were pushing this JSON object was rewriting everything. So this is one problem that has to be considered with this approach. A mechanism such as role sync refreshes everything that Caddy has. So if it's being done wrong or it has the wrong structure, we'll take down the whole reverse proxy part. There can be mechanisms that this does not happen. For example, if we can have two Caddy instances in parallel, we make the updates on one of them, and then there are some tests that are running, and as soon as we make sure everything works correctly, we swap them, we swap the traffic. But for now, consider that with an approach as role sync, you have to really pay attention to what is happening. And after fixing this, we have obtained almost everything, except that users couldn't really log in. The reason why they couldn't log in is because in the auth2proxy configuration file, we were still checking for groups instead of having the correct syntax, which is realm access roles. This allows auth2proxy to open the payload that comes from Keycloak using the secret and look inside and see where they can be forwarded to. Then the target pages where they have access is maintained by our role sync Python script. So things are already pretty dynamic. As soon as we add a new role in Keycloak, it should end up in Caddy pretty fast. Now that everything was working fine, we were doing some extra tests and we were making sure that for the realm that is currently used, in our case production, the roles are synchronized automatically on every container restart. This ensures that if the infrastructure goes down, as soon as it comes up, there is not a desync between what Caddy has and what Keycloak has, and we regenerate all the rules. In most projects, there is a logout button, which usually does a lot of functionality, including a redirect. In our case, this logout button will be just link, because auth2proxy has its own logout functionality. So as soon as we call a URL for auth2proxy logout, auth2proxy will make sure that it logs out the user also from Keycloak. So there is no need to code anything about it, and it's just a configuration on auth2proxy level to have the logout URL configured, and then it's working. In order to have better control on what it is pushed in Caddy, Caddy has different endpoints. It has one endpoint that accepts the full JSON and has endpoints for different sections of the JSON. So we should always use the endpoint with the least amount of scope as possible. When we configure the proxy, we should start with deny by default, so all URLs except the Keycloak one and the static resources one should be denied, and then implement everything else. Every time we go outside the Docker network, we will create a loop. So if possible, we should always use service names, and we should not rely on just passing on the full DNS all the time, the full DNS name all the time. So what we have achieved is to have a login and logout process with very fine-grained access control, without having to write code in neither backend or frontend, which is protecting both services, which is actually spanning across multiple projects if we want to. In order for other applications to be secured by this Keycloak plus auth2proxy configuration, we just add more clients to Keycloak and everything will work. There is no need to change almost anything to support multiple applications. One of the advantages is that when we delete a user from Keycloak, or we log out the sessions of a user from Keycloak, it propagates through all the other applications. So there is no chance of somebody having its account stolen for one application. We can log out that user from all the applications at once, and we can block that user also. So thank you very much for watching this episode. We have achieved what we wanted to. It is working very well. And in the next episode, we will look into how to enable something as Redis for session storage, because this would allow us to push changes from Keycloak and delete sessions even faster. Right now we are limited to the pooling mechanism that comes with the cookie refresh timer, but we can have that with push events and it will be even faster. So thank you very much for watching and see you in the next episode.